In your own words, could you explain your job and what it is?
I am the creative director and copywriter, which means that I write most of the commercials that our salespeople sell. And I am also responsible for the production of those commercials, which means that I do a lot of the voice work, and I also work with our air staff, the different disc jockeys and the other people that work here, and they come in and they record commercials, and then I put them together with music and turn it into a radio commercial.
Cool. Did you go to college for this?
Yes, I did. I went to SUNY Adirondack, and I took their radio and TV course.
What's your favorite part of your job?
Probably the audio production. I like taking the voice work and finding the right music that fits it. Sometimes it's challenging because the script will have too many words or not enough words, and you'll have to find a way to make it 30 seconds or 60 seconds. And I enjoy that challenge.
What's your least favorite part?
You had to ask. I'll have to be honest about that, I guess. My least favorite part of it probably is that what makes a good radio commercial has changed a lot since they started doing radio commercials back in, the 1930s, 1940s. Back then, people were only listening to the radio for entertainment or reading a book or whatever, and then TV came along, and so radio had to compete with TV, and that changed what you needed to do in a radio commercial. And now that we have the internet and smartphones, there's a lot of other distractions. So radio commercials have to be a lot more attention-getting to really grab the listener and to really get the message through to them. And in order to do that, you have to speak to them about something that they care about. You can't just do a commercial that says, "Hey, you're looking for a car? Come buy our car. And our friendly and knowledgeable staff will get you into the car you want at a price you'll like." And that kind of commercial doesn't really work anymore. You really need to speak more to the actual problem that the listener has, and be a little bit more direct in terms of, if you're having problems with your credit, here's why we can help you get past those credit problems and actually get you into a car that you want. The problem is that it's really easy to do a bad commercial that sounds good because people don't really know what an effective commercial is, and there are certain things that you have to do to create a good commercial, certain techniques that sometimes that's a hard sell to get across to the client. So that's probably, I wouldn't say it's my least favorite part of the job, but it's educating the client, and that it's the most time-consuming and difficult part of it, I guess. And even that, I enjoy the challenge of it. I especially enjoy it when the light bulb comes on over their head and you can see that they understand what I'm talking to them about.
How long have you been doing this?
Forever. 27 years. I started 28 if you want to count college radio, but I don't usually. I started on the college radio station back in September of 1985, and I got my first job at a commercial radio station in June or July of 1986.
How long did you know you wanted to do this?
I can remember being in the back seat of my parents' car when I was about 11 or 12 years old, and we had a CB radio. CB radio was a very big thing in the 1970s.
Like the truck drivers?
Like the truck drivers use, yep. And we had a CB radio, and I had it in the back seat of the car, and I had spent a lot of time staying up late listening to the radio. There were two stations that used to come in really well in the middle of the night. After the sun goes down, really powerful AM radio stations travel a great distance. So we lived in Florida, but I was able to listen to radio stations. There was one, WBT, in Charlotte, North Carolina, and there was another one, WBZ, in Boston, Massachusetts, which was really far away from where we were in St. Augustine, Florida, but the signal came in like it was in the next town over. And both of those stations had talk shows that were on all night long, and because they were on all night long, they were able to have fun and not really be as serious as they would be in the daytime and be a little more irreverent, and I really enjoyed listening to those all-night talk shows. Well, we went on a long trip from Florida back up here to where we had moved down to Florida from, and during that trip, which was like a 2-day trip, I used that CB radio to do my own radio show. And what I found was, and this was probably an illegal use of CB radio. I don't really know what the rules are there. I mean, I was 11 or 12 years old. But what I found was there were people that were talking back to me on this trip who were enjoying whatever baloney as 11 or 12-year-old I was spouting into the CB radio. And I guess that was really where I learned that I liked to talk on the radio, and especially liked the fact that there was an audience of people that were listening and giving me feedback.
Yeah, so that's what sparked your interest as radio?
Yeah, I think so. Listening to it late at night and then discovering, using that CB radio, that you could actually communicate with people and get a response.
How did you get your job here?
Well, I was knocking on the door for a long time, as we say. It's a station that I wanted to work at, and it's a station that a lot of people that I've worked with at other stations around here, because I've worked at 8 or 9 stations in the last 27 years, and a lot of the people that work here, I've worked with at other stations at other times in my career. And there are a lot of people that I really like and enjoy working with who are really, really professional and really good at what they do. And so it took quite a few years of just waiting for the right moment. There was someone who worked here who had a job that it was very similar to what I do, who decided that she wanted to get out of the radio biz. And that happened to be an ideal moment for me because I was between jobs at the time, and I came in for an interview, and I was hired that day.
That's cool. So my site, it describes this job as a less favorable job, meaning less people want it. It's not in a bunch of people's favors.
I understand that.
What could be done to make this job more popular, make more people interested in the job?
That's really a great question. And the reason why I say I understand why it would be less popular is there are ways in the radio broadcasting field, even though radio is not as popular as it was 20 or 30 years ago when I first got into it. There are still ways that you can make a great deal of money in radio. You can be the owner of a station, you can be the general manager of a station, you can be a radio salesperson. And basically, in any of those jobs, really the amount of money that you make is limited by how much work you want to put in. When you're a disc jockey or a copywriter or a production director, or some of the other jobs at a radio station, you have a salary, and there aren't a lot of opportunities to enhance that salary. Yeah. Once in a while, someone will come along and say, hey, would you like to do some voice work for the special project that I'm doing? And you can make a little bit of extra money doing that. But the income opportunities aren't the same as they are if you were in a bigger market like Los Angeles or New York City or Chicago. In those markets, I think you would find this job is probably pretty well paying. Here, and I'm not complaining. I make enough to take care of my family and pay my bills and have some fun on the weekends, so I'm not complaining at all. But I can understand why it wouldn't be the first choice of somebody who's really ambitious and wants to make a lot of money. I do this because it's fun and it's challenging and every day is different and I really like it, not because I think I'm going to get rich. Yeah,
it fulfills your need to be on the radio, your fun of it.
Yeah, it fulfills the need to be creative, I guess, is really, that's right. There's a sign on the wall that says creative, and that's exactly right. It really, it's an opportunity to exercise those creative muscles that I don't think you get to do if you're stocking shelves at Target or flipping burgers at Wendy's. And there's nothing wrong with those jobs either. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that actually really enjoy doing those things. But this is pretty much my dream job. I've done a lot of things in radio. I've done news. I've been a disc jockey. And this really... And I only started doing this about 8 years ago, and I never knew this was something that I would enjoy so much, but it really is the most fun I've ever had in 27 years of radio.
You mentioned before that you do commercials. Could you describe the process of making a commercial?
Sure. What happens is we have a team of salespeople, account executives they're called, and they go out every day and they visit various businesses and they talk to the owners or the decision makers at those businesses about how to help them get more customers. So for example, let's say I own Bob's Pizza Shop, and Joe from the radio station comes in and says, well, how's business, Joe? And Joe says, well, business isn't that great, and well, the radio station can help you sell more pizzas. So if he decides that he wants to advertise on the radio, the salesperson has a couple of different choices of how to make that happen. He can take some notes and talk to him and come back and tell me what his business is about, and I can try to put a commercial together. A lot of times, half the time, I'll get to talk to the client directly. They'll come in and they'll sit down with me, and I'll talk to them and get a feel for what they do. And I prefer doing it that way because it's more direct, and I feel like I can make a better commercial if I really can pull out of them what it is that makes their business unique and why it's successful. Not a lot of unsuccessful businesses can afford to advertise on the radio. So, I always say there's something called a unique selling proposition, which is what makes any particular business or store in their category successful over a long period of time. There's a reason why if you have a Tractor Supply store, even though there are other Tractor Supply stores, there's a reason why you have customers that are loyal and keep coming back to you.
Because they like something about you.
That's right. So I'll talk to the owner. A lot of times I'll even say, if I could talk to your customers, because the customers really are the ones that know the reason why they keep coming back. Sometimes the owner doesn't really know. They're so busy day to day paying their bills and making sure that everything is stocked right and that, everything was working well with their business, that they're not even able to take a breath and think about their unique selling proposition. But if I can talk to the customers or sometimes even the employees, you really get a feel for that. So those are really the two ways that the commercial starts. From my end, the salesperson comes back with an order, and I either talk to the client or they give me some notes. And either way, then from there I'll start writing up a script. Or sometimes I'll just, like this, I'll sit with the client with a couple of microphones and I'll do an interview, which can either be used to form the idea for a script, or sometimes I can actually turn that interview into a commercial. And those have actually probably been the most successful ones that I've done, because a successful business owner who's good at what he does and who really understands his business and understands his customers' needs, there's nobody who's a better spokesman for that business than him. And if you can have a conversation with him that's real and that's honest and that brings out some of the emotion that's involved in his business, because all good radio commercials are built with an emotion. What is the emotional need on the part of the listener that this business can satisfy? Whether it's I'd like a cool new car, or I'd like my kids to have a nice time out at dinner tonight. There's always an emotional satisfaction that you can give to the listener with a good commercial. And when I can latch on to that, that's where we build the most successful commercials. So at some point in this process of writing a script or doing an interview, at that point we have to commit to doing the voice work. So we'll go into the studio. And it's either a one-person spot where I'll just sit, or someone else will sit in front of a microphone and record the voice work and try to get the right delivery to it, the right emotion, the right volume, everything. There's a lot of different factors that go into it when you have a script in your hand. And it's the job of the voice talent, whoever it is, to look at that script and really try to get a feel for how should this sound, how should I deliver it. And sometimes you'll put notes in the script. Sound cocky and arrogant here, or sound like you're a little doubtful here. You put those kind of notes in it to kind of help them. The worst scripts are the ones that don't have any indication of how it should sound, and because the person that wrote it just assumes, well, they'll understand what I'm getting at. And once the voice work is recorded, then you'll decide, does it need sound effects? What kind of music should it have? Sometimes you don't use music. Sometimes it can be very effective to just have 60 seconds of someone honestly talking to you about something. Some of the most effective commercials we've done are just 60 seconds of someone talking honestly about something that they've experienced with this client, and here's why you should check them out. And after that, it then goes for approval to the client usually in the form of an MP3, where we'll email the client the MP3 and they'll listen to it and decide if it's perfect or if we need to make any changes. Sometimes we'll put it on a CD and give it to them that way if they don't have good email skills, or their email account is too small to get an MP3, that happens. But either way, at that point, the commercial is either approved or it needs to be changed. I'm pretty proud of the fact that I'm going to say probably 75% of the time, the commercials that I've put together don't require serious changes. Very rarely, once in the last 2 years have I heard, we need to go back to the drawing board with this idea, because the client really wasn't digging the idea that I had. And so we went and we did something else. And the second time it was approved. But most of the time, like I say, probably 75 or 80% of the time, it's either it's perfect, go ahead and run it, or could you add in my phone number, or you got, something about the address wrong, or something like that. But for the most part, usually at that point, they're approved. Then the traffic department here at the radio station, when I say traffic department, traffic in radio means two different things. There's traffic reports that you hear on the radio, like, now let's get the traffic. And you'll hear, well, traffic right now is backed up on I-90 and 787 and, take the Twin Bridges because everything's flying right through there. That's the traffic that the listeners hear. Traffic inside the radio station means the process of getting the commercial from my department, the creative and production department, into the on-air system and actually being played on the air. And we have somebody called the traffic director, who is the person that I work with most closely. When she's doing the logs, which determine what gets played on the air, she's the one who comes to me and says, hey, Pete put in an order for this client. Do you have a commercial for that? And I'll say, yes, I do. Or if I don't, I'll say, no, I don't. And then I've got to call Pete and say, hey, where's the commercial? But that's basically the process of it.
So it's not too much trial and error, but there is some sometimes.
Yeah, there definitely is some. And for example, that one that I told you that we had to go back to the drawing board.
Only happens a few times.
It does. It's happened a few times. I would say in the last 8 years, that's probably happened half a dozen times, where the client just doesn't like the idea at all. Let's do something else. It's interesting. The most recent one was for a play that's being staged locally. And it's a classic play that goes back to, I think, the late 1940s or the early 1950s. And I thought that it would be funny to do kind of a sarcastic and irreverent take on the play, because everybody knows the play. We don't really have to tell anybody what it's about. I figured the main point of it was just to let people know the play is being held locally and you should go see the play. Well, the client begged to differ, and I did once they heard my commercial, which was funny and sarcastic, and if I played it for you, it would make you laugh. But they felt that it needed to be a little more reverent and a little more respectful. So we went with something that sounded a little more traditional. We put some nice, smoky 1940s jazz music under it. It sounded great, but again, it was miles away from the idea that we started with.
It's sometimes frustrating having to go back and do everything all over again.
It can be. That time it wasn't, because I totally understood that. Okay, I wasn't on the same page with the client. Let's do something else. So I wouldn't say that I was frustrated. There was a time 6 or 7 years ago where I had what I thought was a really good idea for a commercial that was based on a TV series that was popular at the time, and it was really funny if you knew that TV show, which was like a top 10 TV show. Everybody watched it. My wife watched this show. But the client had never seen the show, didn't get the joke, and hated the commercial. That was a little frustrating because I knew it would work on the radio. I knew the listeners would get it and would love it, but the client didn't get it. And as the Joker said once in a Batman comic book, if you have to explain the joke, it isn't funny.
No. So. Okay. Do you feel that you get enough recognition?
That's a funny question, because I think there are a lot of people who get into radio for recognition. They want to be famous. They want to be, hey, you're that guy on the radio. I get that sometimes. I'm not in the least bit interested in it. I'm not afraid of it. It doesn't bother me. But it's not. I didn't get into it for that. I got into it, I guess, really for just to be creative. And so it's nice if it's recognized, and I really appreciate it when somebody says, hey, I heard you on the radio, you sounded great, or that commercial was funny, or it really was good. I love to hear that. That's really nice. But I guess it's not something that I crave.
Do you have any advice to those who are interested in this career?
Oh boy, that's a question that has changed a great deal over 27 years. If you had asked me that question 10 or 11 years ago, when I was working down at a very popular station in Albany, and I was making a lot more money than I ever made at any other time in my career, I would have said, yeah, get into radio. It's you can make a lot of money and do what you want to do, because that job down in Albany was a job where I was able to be really creative, but they also paid me a lot of money. And believe me, that's a nice combination. I guess if somebody said to me, I'm thinking about getting into radio, I really want to get into radio, I would give them the first piece of advice that I ever got from my broadcasting professor up at SUNY Adirondack, which is on the first day of class, the first words out of his mouth were, if you're getting into this business to make money, you probably want to get into some other business.
Yeah.
Because while there are people who have gotten rich in radio, your Howard Sterns and your Rush Limbaughs and your Sean Hannitys, that is very rare. That is 1 in 10,000 rare. So that's not a reason to get into radio. If, however, you're somebody who is willing to put in the hours and put in the time. There's a theory, and I forget exactly what it's, the outlier theory. You're familiar with that? That anybody who wants to get good at something has to do 10,000 hours of it badly before they do the first hour well. And I think that that's true. You've really got to be willing to do 10,000 hours of bad radio before you finally figure out how to do it right. But if you are somebody who really feels like they have a contribution to make, if they want to communicate with people, if they want to be creative, I would cautiously advise them to maybe give it a shot, but be aware that 95% of radio stations now do not encourage a lot of creativity. Most radio stations, especially in mid-sized to larger markets, they want you to come in and read the cards that they've typed up for you. Hey, you're hearing all the hits on, your station for the hits.
Same thing every day.
That's right. The same thing every 10 minutes. And they want you to play the songs that they tell you to play, and they want you to say exactly the things that they want you to say, and they don't want you to do anything that you weren't told to do. And that can be frustrating. I've been very lucky in that most of the radio stations that I've worked at, I was at stations where I had a pretty large degree of latitude to do what I wanted to do. Out of 27 years, there was one 6-year job where it was, here's the cards, this is what you're supposed to say, don't say anything else.
No.
That was not fun.
No.
So, if anyone who's interested in radio or interested in broadcasting, if you're interested in broadcasting just in general, TV is where the money is.
Yeah.
And certainly where the fame is. However, if you get into the right radio station and you really have a talent for it or a gift for it and the passion for it and you're willing to do that work and put in those 10,000 hours, you can find a fulfilling career. You might not get rich, but you can have fun.
Better have fun than live your life rich and
both is ideal, but yeah, it's pretty tough to go home and roll around in your money vault, but you're miserable because you did not have fun all day. That's it's tough, but that's a big part of growing up and maturing, I think, and a process that everybody goes through, probably in their 20s when they're starting off whatever their career is going to be. I think you have to find the balance of what's important to you. And there are people to whom the money is what matters, and that's fine. If you're totally focused on your 401k and your retirement and making sure that there's a lot of money in your bank account and you've got a high credit limit on your credit cards and all that, if that's your focus and that's your priority and you're not hurting anybody else, I have no problem with that at all. I just wanted to communicate and be creative, and that's, it's kind of a different thing. But again, it really is up to the individual to figure out what the balance is and what they want to do.
They describe this job as artistic and social.
Yeah, definitely true. Yes. Somewhere here, hold on one second. Somewhere here, I have a sheet of ideas that I had for commercials that I haven't used yet. And that would be the artistic part. Mm-hmm. These are all my commercials that I've written that we don't know yet if they're going to run. It's quite a stack, isn't it?
Yeah.
But again, there are days when we do 20 or 30 or 40 commercials. It can get quite crazy. Oh, I hope that piece of paper is in here because I think, oh, here it is. Okay. So when you talk about artistic, I sat down one day and I really wanted to have a stock of ideas that I could go to if a salesperson comes in and says, I really want this commercial to be creative. Mm-hmm. So here's some of the artistic, creative ideas that I came up with. A ghost talking to a new homeowner. Okay, so the homeowner has bought the house and finds out there's a ghost. What is the ghost telling him?
Yeah.
You need new carpet, George. Something like that. Midlife crisis. I don't know where I was going with that. Talking car. Did you ever see Knight Rider?
Yeah. Or
All right, if I had a car dealer who came in here and said I wanted a really creative commercial, I was thinking that we could do a commercial that was sort of like Knight Rider, and at some point during the commercial, the car would say, "No, I do not have a turbo boost." I thought that would be funny. Chicken counting its eggs before they hatch. I don't know what that would be useful for. A desert island letter writer. Now, interestingly, I've actually used this twice, and it hasn't been approved either time. But I'm always on the desert island. You can hear the beautiful Polynesian music playing, and I'm reflecting on how much I miss that one business that I can't go to anymore because I'm here on this desert island, and there's a couple of really funny jokes in it, and it's never been bought, so that's sad. Someone trapped on an elevator. What are they talking to themselves about? An angry complaint letter. That's another one. I did that one for a dentist. The guy was writing a complaint letter, and his wife says, "Well, what are you so angry about?" "Well, they're giving dentists a bad name because they're so cheap and they do such good work." It was weird. It was kind of I was trying to have contrast in it, and that didn't work too well. But I did use that one. Parent talking to a child who won't come out of the bathroom. Haven't used that one yet, but, someday I will. And then finally, a commercial aimed directly at one person. And then my notes say, "Hey, Bill, I'm talking to you." And then the announcer says, "But this is radio. You have to talk to everybody." And then the other guy says, "No, this message is just for Bill." And that's the reason for that is sometimes there's a technique that you can use in copywriting where you make the listener feel that they're getting information that they shouldn't have, like somehow you're letting them in on a secret. That's right. And that actually can be really, hey, don't tell anybody, but right now the furniture store has couches for 75% off, but just between you and me. And that actually works pretty well. So yes, it's definitely artistic. As far as the social aspect of it is, yes and no. A lot of the job is being in this production studio, which is a 8x8 room. Well, maybe it's 10 or 12, I'm not sure. But, 6 or 7 hours a day sitting in front of a microphone or writing scripts. However, you get to interact with the clients. They'll come in and you'll talk to them. Some of them I'm very friendly with. Some of them are great folks, and a lot of them are great folks. How's your daughter? How's your dog? That kind of thing. So there's that social aspect of it too. And radio is a social thing. Sometimes, hey, we're going out for burgers after work. Do you want to, that kind of thing. So yeah, there's a social aspect of it too, I guess.
And would you say that doing the commercials, there's more of an economic sort of part in it? Like, because there were other topics that I could have chosen. One of the topics was like trying to convince people and stuff. Would you say that would also be a factor in this? I
mean, writing radio commercials is all about convincing people. And it's all about convincing them to contribute to the economy. So it is economic. A radio commercial, and this is one of my pet peeves, is that when someone says, I want a really creative commercial. Well, I love making creative commercials, but I want to make a creative commercial that causes people to go to your business and spend money. Because it can be hilariously funny, but if it doesn't move the listener to invest some of their hard-earned cash with that business, it's not a successful commercial, and the client is not going to want to continue to advertise or continue to run that commercial. I have an example of that I was thinking of too. Hold on a second, let me think. See, I can edit this out later. That's one of the great parts of my job. What was I going to say about? It'll come to me. Go ahead and give me your next question. Or are we done? Because this is not the note to end on. Is that it?
Oh, I guess.
No more questions?
Do you feel that talking to everyone in particular, do you feel this, that you can say pretty much whatever you want and have a feeling of security, not them not knowing, really, being face-to-face to you?
Because I'm behind the microphone?
Yeah.
And, well... no. And that's something that I feel pretty strongly about as a broadcaster. We have an obligation to be responsible. Radio stations, if I say to you, what is a radio station's primary responsibility? What would your answer be?
That their people trust them, what they say and stuff.
Well, actually, you're pretty close there. Radio stations are licensed by the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, to serve the public interest. So yes, what we say has to be trustworthy. It has to be honest. I won't lie in a commercial. There have been times, not at this station, but at other stations in the past, where somebody said, well, can we fudge this or can we exaggerate that? And I won't do that. If I don't know that something is true, I won't put it in the commercial. We also have other obligations. For example, you're not allowed to mention lotteries or raffles unless it's the New York State Lottery.
Yeah.
So there are legal aspects of it that I always have to kind of be the watchdog for. The salespeople don't always understand the rules. For example, if somebody wants to do a commercial and use a certain piece of music under it, you can't use copyrighted music. And any music that was recorded in the last 75 or 80 years is copyrighted. Now, there are songs that are public domain. I don't know if you're familiar with that turn of phrase or not, which means they have gone out of copyright. They may have been copyrighted 100 years ago, but they are not anymore because under U.S. copyright law, after so many years, the copyright expires, and at that point, anyone can do anything with it that they want. However, even a song that's public domain, like Yes, We Have No Bananas. Have you ever heard that song? It's a really goofy song. Yes, we have no bananas today. That song is in the public domain. However, if somebody came in with a CD of that song that somebody recorded, that particular recording of that song is copyrighted, even though the song itself is in the public domain. However, if that person came in with a guitar and said, I want to play the song in the background of my commercial, they obviously have given permission for us to use their recording of that public domain song, so then we can use it. So there are different legal issues and things that you have to be responsible about. One of the big things is that a radio commercial has to identify either explicitly or implicitly who paid for the commercial. And you'll hear that a lot of times with political commercials. Paid for it by the committee to elect Joan Collins or whoever. Or if it's implicit. If you hear a 60-second commercial for McDonald's that talks about how great the Big Mac is, you know who paid for that. It doesn't have to say paid for by McDonald's at the end because Burger King didn't pay for it. So yeah, there are a lot of legal responsibilities and ethical responsibilities that come with every aspect of radio broadcasting. It's interesting that you asked that, and that's a pretty smart question because I don't think that's something a lot of people spend a lot of time thinking about when they're just listening to some song they like on the radio. But there are actually a lot of questions that we have to deal with on an almost daily basis. Can we do this? Can we say that? And some of them I know for sure. I know that you can't use Yellow Submarine in the background of a Subway commercial unless somebody wants to pay the person who owns the right to that song $500,000 or however much they want to use it. And by the way, nobody will pay $500,000 to run a $2,000 advertising campaign. I promise you. That's the example I always have to give. But, within the legal structure that we have of we can do this, we license our music service that we have for our commercials. We have an enormous library of music that we can use. And a lot of those public domain songs, you can find instrumental versions of those that we can use. So that's, you can be really creative and have a lot of fun that way. But you do have to know the rules.
When you went to college, did you go to college for radio in general or just for the commercial? Well,
actually, it was a radio and TV broadcasting course, and it was fairly general in that, and I was not in the least bit interested in TV. I was interested in no aspect of television broadcasting. I didn't want to be on TV. I had to do TV productions for that class. It was agony. I was so bored by it because I knew I wanted to be on the radio. But the course at the time up at SUNY Adirondack was TV and radio broadcasting, and that was the only option if I wanted to go there, which I did. So I took that course, and there was some commercial copywriting. You did have to produce commercials, so there was that aspect of it. But I also had to do the TV. I had to do a DJ show where I played, songs on the radio every morning. All of that was included in the course. The interesting thing is, after all we've been discussing here, I didn't start doing copywriting and production as my main job until about 8 years ago. So for the first 19 or 20 years of my career, I either did news or I was a disc jockey. Those were my two main jobs. This came along very late, and as I said earlier, was a very pleasant surprise because I really enjoy it, and I didn't know you could have this much fun going into a radio station every day. Doing news is hard. That's a 24-hour-a-day job, and I probably spent more years doing news than anything else. And that's something where you can't just forget about it when you leave. You have to stay on top of things and know what's going on when you go into work the next day. And being a disc jockey, while that is, at its best, that's probably the most fun that you can have. I didn't find it to be particularly fulfilling. Again, because a lot of it is just, hey, that was Sheryl Crow, and now here's whoever. There's not a lot that you can do within that unless you're really, really, really have a kind of creativity that I don't have. I don't have that the gene to just constantly be spitting out new bits and new jokes and gags. Yeah. That's not me.
Top of your head.
Right, exactly. The great thing about the copywriting is that, in an ideal situation, I have a couple of days to think of, well, you saw my list of ideas there. I can let things stew. I can kind of, a lot of my kind of creativity, the copywriting creativity, happens kind of in the back of your head where you know what you have to do and you just kind of let it sit in there and you think about it every couple of hours and what am I going to do with that? Well, maybe I could do this, maybe I could do that. And maybe you do a little research and find out what other stations have done with the same idea so that you don't do that or so that you steal it really well. And but that's a different kind of creativity. And that's and again, that's the part of it that I enjoy.